thanks very much, and I'm delighted to be here in this beautiful venue. And many thanks to the Nobel Peace Center for the invitation. It is a great privilege to be speaking in a room which has celebrated the successes of so many human rights defenders. At the outset, let me pay tribute to the very worthy winners of 2022, Ales Memorial and the Centre for Civil Liberties, all of whom are well known to me and the mandate and do extraordinary work. While not forgetting the severe challenges that each of the 2022 winners continues to face, I'm glad to have the opportunity to reflect briefly this evening on the successes that human rights defenders have achieved over the last 25 years since the UN Declaration on Human Rights Defenders was adopted unanimously. On every continent, they are achieving stunning success in democracies and dictatorships, in cities, in forests, and often in the face of great danger. The report I presented in March to the Human Rights Council was called Success Through Perseverance and Solidarity, 25 Years of Achievements of Human Rights Defenders. And it's full of examples of what human rights defenders have managed to do over the last 25 years. In these 25 years, I have seen time and time again, it is exactly because defenders peacefully confront powerful vested interests, because they expose corruption, because they refuse to accept injustice, because they challenge criminal gangs, because they talk about issues governments want to hide, because they tell the truth, and because they make good things happen, that they are attacked. Repression is often a measure of effectiveness. In speaking directly to well over 1,000 human rights defenders at this stage, since I took up the mandate, I've been blown away by the range of work that defenders do all over the world. In Bangladesh, an organization run by children is preventing child marriages, even though its members receive death threats. In 2021, human rights defenders in Thailand won a major court victory for local communities in having unlawful deeds of title deeds of 23 plots issued to oil palm companies revoked. In Zimbabwe, human rights defenders have won damages in a series of cases holding the government accountable for police brutality. Women human rights defenders in Indonesia played a vital role in passing a law last year criminalizing physical sexual abuse, including in marriage, sexual exploitation, forced marriage, including of children, and the circulation of non-consensual sexual content. And human rights defenders have won significant victories for the rights of LGBT people in many places in recent years, from Belize to Botswana to St. Lucia and Sri Lanka and elsewhere. Discriminatory laws and practices have been challenged and defeated. The work of human rights defenders means that people wrongfully jailed, for example, Germain Rukuki in Burundi, who was given a sentence of 32 years, have been released. Securing the release of human rights defenders serving lengthy prison sentences was a priority for my first term, and it will continue to be a priority for my second term. I did a report on long-term imprisonment. I took 10 years as the baseline, and wrote to all the states last year that are holding people for longer than 10 years. And some of the cases are truly horrific, and everyone forgets about them. Corruption is another issue, major issue, and human rights defenders have worked for decades to expose corruption, though they haven't always been recognized as human rights defenders. Prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, anti-corruption defenders in Ukraine successfully campaigned for a reduction in the price of a blood cancer drug, which fell reportedly from $90 to $2. And these are major successes and have major impact, and they deserve to be celebrated. And after the outbreak of COVID in Wuhan, 18 human rights lawyers in China and elsewhere provided pre-legal advice and support to the families of those who had died in Wuhan and Shanghai, and obtained significant compensation payments for the families of the people who had died. And this is a remarkable achievement in a context of a country such as China, where any form of rights-based organizing is so harshly cracked down on. Rani Yanyan is an indigenous woman from the Chittagong hill tracts in Bangladesh, and I love this story. The army wanted to build a 5-star hotel in the area, threatening the local water supply and the displacement of 10,000 Mro persons. And she helped organize young people to consult with local villagers in the middle of the night to avoid surveillance. And she and others publicized internationally what was happening, and the military now seems to have backed off for the moment. Now, for some defenders, just managing to keep going in the face of extreme danger and threats is a success in itself. Women human rights defenders have been to the fore in Afghanistan, in Iran, and in Myanmar, leading the protests and trying to document the violations. Human rights defenders working in Al-Haq, Palestinian NGO, have shown remarkable resilience despite office raids, a ban, and the misuse of legislation to designate them a terrorist organization for which no evidence was found. The tenacity of these human rights defenders and others in continuing to document human rights violations demonstrates success in the face of severe challenges. Defenders that I've spoken to have told me how they turned to protecting the vulnerable during COVID, saved lives by rescuing refugees and migrants from the sea, advanced the rights of women's bodily autonomy, and brought perpetrators of state violence to justice, exposed the adverse impact of business in the context of land, environment, and Indigenous people's rights, and made many other vital contributions helping others. Through imagination and perseverance, with hope and with solidarity, human rights defenders continue to succeed against all the odds and often despite awful threats and attacks. These victories are usually the result of long-term struggles and are typically achieved in collaboration with other human rights defenders and other networks, and often with a broad range of allies, including governments. This year, I'm listening particularly to the challenges faced by young defenders and children who are human rights defenders from across the world, because they're the ones that are going to carry the human rights struggle forward into the future, and I look forward to the discussion later on. Next month, I'm hosting 40 child and youth human rights defenders in Vienna with the kind support of the Austrian government and the UN for a one-day conference to hear directly from them about the age-related challenges that they face and what we should be doing to better support them. And the youngest is 10, and you're young up to 32 if you're by UN definition. So obviously everyone is under 32, but we just met all the participants in a couple of groups over the last week or so, and the youngest is an indigenous child from Ecuador who's only 10. Mind you, if I may just one aside, there are 2 coming from Cameroon. The defender is 15, and her guardian is 18, and this really bothers me because, I insisted that all children had to bring their guardians with me, but I was thinking somebody, that, wouldn't, if it was their first time travelling, which in a lot of cases it is, that they'd be safe and looked after and all of that. Now I think I have to set up people in the team to mind the guardians as well as the... Despite their legitimate and peaceful work, human rights defenders all around the world are maligned constantly by states and non-state actors. They are vilified and targeted in an effort basically to, at best, undermine their work and at worst, stop it. And this has to stop. We say it over and over again, but it continues. States have a duty to recognise the crucial work they do and to help them to carry out this legitimate, peaceful work to help build civil and just societies. And it's not an impossible job, as we have seen that when states and human rights defenders work together, change is possible. And I'd like to end by reiterating my congratulations to the 2022 laureates, and to them and all human rights defenders around the world. I salute their courage, their persistence, their hope, their resilience, and their vision of a better world. And when I think of human rights defenders, I think of the words of the Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw. Life is no brief candle for me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I have got hold of for the moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. Thanks.